This story took place 2 years ago when my wife and I were 25 and 27. We were getting ready to visit our friends when I couldn't find my phone. I asked my wife if she knew where my phone was, but she said she didn't know. She said it a bit suspiciously, so I asked if she was keeping my phone. She yelled at me for thinking that I thought I was cheating on her. I fought back because I wasn't cheating. We eventually came to the agreement that we'd look at the cameras to see who was lying. We checked the footage and saw that my phone was on the kitchen counter. We were about to turn off the camera footage when we saw someone walking around in the house. He wasn't stealing anything, he was just walking around. Then he suddenly stopped and stared at the camera. Me and my wife were terrified. I go to an all-boys Christian school, and bad things would always happen at our school. While I was still in the school, one of my friends fell down the stairs. He broke his neck and died instantly. What I saw that day still gives me nightmare till this day. It happened so suddenly, and there was no way he could have just fell down. There was another incident when one of the boys got on top of the roof of our school and jumped off. There was no reason for him to commit suicide, he was one of the happiest and nicest person in the school. It was like our school was cursed, bad things would happen to students here every day, and they would just be known as an accident. That was until one day, when I stayed back at school. I heard the sound of a spray can. When I went closer to see who it was at our school, there were 3 people. They were wearing all black. I didn't want to confront them, so I went home and reported it to the front desk person at my school the next day. He told my principal and they went to check it out. What they saw was black magic. There was a pentagram, hex bag and a voodoo doll. Once they got rid of the star, burnt the hex bag and voodoo dolls, the school went back to normal.
It was just a normal day, my parents were having their morning coffee. When I heard my dad start telling my mom about an incident that's been happening around our neighborhood. As I start listening to him, I heard him say that he's heard on the news that there has been 2 guys going around knocking on people's door pretending to be repairmen. When they knocked and no one was home, they would break into the house and steal all their stuff. I thought nothing of it, knowing that it would probably never happen to our house, so I went back to sleep. After a few hours, I woke up and checked my phone, seeing that I got a message from my mom. It said, "Your dad and I will be home late from work, be careful and don't open the doors for anyone." I put my phone back down and rolled over. I started to doze off again when I heard a knock at the door. I ignored the knock, thinking it was just a person advertising. When suddenly I heard the windows being smashed. I got scared and hid under my blankets. Seconds later I heard someone open my room door and then slowly closing it. I thought the intruder got scared that he saw someone was in the room and closed the door. So I took a peek under my blanket and saw that he was still standing in my room. He knew I was in the room.
My wife and I recently just moved into a new house. It came with lights which turned on when it detected motion at night. Every night, the lights would turn on for no reason. When the lights turned on, I would go to check if there was anything there. Whenever I checked, there would be nothing. After a few days, the lights stopped turning on. I checked the lights, and it looked broken. This seemed strange because it looked like someone broke it. There was no way the lights could be broken unless someone threw something at it. We replaced it the next day, and the lights continued to turn on. Me and my wife then realized that the lights weren't broken, but someone was causing it to turn on. That's when I decided to stay up all night to figure out who was causing the lights to turn on. I looked out the window all night, but for some reason, the lights didn't turn on. The next day, I was really tired from staying up all night, so I went to sleep early. My wife saw that I was asleep, so she went to check the lights instead.
It was just an ordinary day at school when I needed to go to the toilet. I raised my hand and asked the teacher if I could go to the toilet. He said yes and let me leave. While I was walking to the toilets, a lockdown drill went off. This meant you had to go to the nearest room and lock yourself in. I ran to the toilets and hid in the last toilet stall. It felt like I was hiding for hours when I heard the bathroom door open. I thought it was a teacher looking for me when I heard the sound of a gun reloading. I heard him start opening all of the doors one by one until he stopped in front of mine. In that moment, I thought I was going to die. That was until I heard the police yell out, "Drop your weapon and get on the ground." I thought I was going to be saved when I heard shots. I left my stall, thinking the police shot the intruder.
Me and my friends were hanging out in the park. We were talking about our school project. We didn't know what to do for our project, so we just decided to walk around the playground. It was getting late, so we were getting ready to go home. I was about to leave when I saw a little boy playing in the sandpit all alone. I was going to ask him where his parents were when I saw a man come out from a white van and walk towards him. He talked to the little boy and gave him candy. I thought he was his dad, so I left and went back home. The next day, I realized I left my book at the park, so I went to go get it. When I grabbed my book, I started walking back home. While I was walking, I saw the same man from yesterday talking to another kid. That's when I realized that man wasn't the little kid's father. He gave the little kid candy and started to walk the kid to his van. I called the police and told them about the kidnapper. A few days later, the police publicly announced that they were unable to find the missing children and kidnapper. I just finished my night shift and I was on my way home when my fuel lights turned on, indicating that I need to fill up on fuel. I pulled up to the closest gas station and started filling up the car with fuel. After I finished, I headed toward the window to pay. It might be different for every country, but where I am from, after 7 p.m. the doors at the gas station automatically close for safety reasons. So we had to pay at the window. As I was walking to the window, I was about to press the button to notify them, but he was already there. He looked at me and pointed for me to enter through the doors. I thought this was strange, but I went in anyways. When I entered the gas station, he locked the doors straight away. I said to him, "What the hell are you doing?" He said, "I need you to pretend that you're shopping and to not act suspicious." I asked him why. He told me that he just saw someone climbed into my car backseat and that he was holding something. The cashier then called the police and told me to stay with him and not leave the building. A few minutes later, the police arrived and checked my car. But there was no one inside. This story took place when my roommates and I moved into a new house. I was with my roommates when we heard a piano playing. We looked at the lounge room and saw a piano. It looked old, so it was probably just misfunctioning. My roommate then said that it was probably a ghost that was haunting this house. I was going to say something when my other roommate said something. He said that 50 years ago, a man who played the piano died in this house. I had the creeps and decided to go to sleep early. I woke up to a loud piano. It was 3 a.m. My other roommates were asleep, so I decided to go investigate. I saw the piano, and there was nothing there. The next day, we tried to move the piano, but it didn't move. We decided to just leave the piano. It was night again, and I was at the kitchen eating food when the piano played by itself again.
Me and my friends were going home from a party. Their names were Kevin and Amy. I was only the sober one because I was the driver. We were driving for around 15 minutes when Amy needed to go vomit. I pulled over to the side of the road so my friend could vomit. She said that she needed to go toilet and that she'll be right back. I said okay, but to hurry up because we need to go home as soon as possible. She went into the forest and we started to wait for her. Kevin and I were talking when we realized that she had been gone for over 10 minutes. We were starting to get worried, so we went out to look for her. Me and Kevin started to scream her name out. She didn't reply to our screams, so we split up to look for Amy because it would be faster. I was calling out Amy's name when I saw a man. I thought it was Kevin, so I asked him if he found Amy yet. He didn't reply back and walked off. I was going to chase him until Kevin called my name. I looked behind me and saw him. I realized that the man I saw before wasn't Kevin and told him that we need to find Amy and get out of here. We looked for around an hour, but we couldn't find her. We went to the car when we saw Amy's dead body near the car. We got scared and didn't know what to do, so we drove away and left.
When I was a kid, my grandma would always tell me scary stories. There was one story that would always scare me the most. It was a story about the witches that lived in the woods. I was scared of this story the most because it was located near my house. My grandma would tell me that the witches lived deep in the woods where their abandoned huts were. She said that back in the day, the witches would sacrifice children in the huts to use them for evil. After my grandma finishes telling her scary stories, she would always say she was just kidding. But for some reason, whenever she tells this story, she just tells me to never go into the woods to look for these huts. I've never thought much about it because I thought all her stories were fake until one day when I was walking home from school. I walked past the woods when I heard a kid yelling. I didn't know what to do. I wanted to call the police, but I didn't have a phone, so without thinking, I ran into the woods looking for them. That's when I saw the abandoned huts. I remembered my grandma's stories about the witches, but I thought it was just a coincidence. I decided to take a look inside one of the huts. That's when I saw the kid. The witches were sacrificing a kid.